Debra Runge. I'm an ESL instructor, and I am adult education.
Debra, thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to talk with me today. I hope your peers, or I know your peers, are going to appreciate this time. And wanted the opportunity just to talk about your unique experiences and what makes you such an excellent adult educator. And so I know you have taught on both sides of the ocean. You have a CELTA certificate. Did I say that right?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
CELTA certification, which is kind of the British or European equivalent of TESOL here. And so kind of wanted to know, what is that universal language of ESOL? What have you learned in your experiences overseas, but also your experiences here, that is really the same with the fundamentals of teaching ESL well?
Okay, well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So I would say the universal language is pretty much facilitation, not teaching. With an ESL where the student is in control of their language learning experience. And so we're just there to kind of guide them along the way, to help them along, with their journey. But ultimately, it becomes a responsibility that's theirs, but we are there to help them.
Do students always get that, though, right out of the gate, or do you sometimes have to help them figure out that that's their role in the classroom?
Yes, no, definitely have to help them figure that out.
What does that look like?
It's a lot of persuasion, but ultimately it's activities where they do research for themselves. But in the beginning, there might be some resistance, but when they start to see how it benefits them and how much better they feel about themselves, knowing that they discovered this on their own, it builds their self-confidence and self-esteem, and then there's no more resistance.
So, our students, ESL students, whether we're in Europe or here, come from places all over the world. And you mentioned resources, or doing your own research and resources. Resources can really vary significantly, though, from country to country. So how does that impact their ability to think about doing research or resources? What is that experience like as a teacher?
Well, it does pose. I mean, it's not really a challenge, but it's a different perspective. So as a teacher, it reminds you that not everybody has the same resources, and that they've kind of used different methods or something to get to the same place where others are. But if they're here now and there are the resources available and they don't know about them, then I help them to, tell them that there is this option, or there is this option now as well.
So I imagine, though, that when you came here and you taught in the States, that you've found some unique challenges maybe to teaching ESL here, and wanted to know, what you have learned about the students here and about the challenges here in teaching English in the United States, and what were those challenges, or what did you learn, and how did it really influence how you teach?
I would say one of the challenges, for me, the challenge was moving away from, because my previous experience was with middle school, so moving away from that kind of approach to classroom instruction to now having adults from all over the world, different cultures, all together in one room. So that was a challenge initially, but then I started to just to see the benefit of how much knowledge I could kind of gain from them, and use that to kind of improve my instruction, and in essence help them improve theirs.
Help me understand that a little bit better. So, and everyone who's going to watch this, I think, might be interested in understanding why it initially was a challenge, because a lot of adult educators come from a background maybe working with kids, and then they move into adults. How would you describe the challenge? Let's start there. Yeah, how would you describe that challenge?
From working the change? Okay, so the challenge is, and this is something that we were just studying in one of my classes, The challenge is changing the perception of teaching children, because there's like pedagogy, which is, the art of teaching children, which is different to teaching adults. So the challenge was kind of breaking down that kind of structure which everybody's used to, and now allowing your adult students to kind of blossom,
Sure.
take more control.
Sure. So when I go into ESL classrooms like yours, one of the things that you see instantly is students really engaged, and often they're working and you're not talking at all, right? You're moving around the room. What are some best practices that you use in the classroom, or what's an engaging activity that you use maybe even very often that gives students that agency, that authority, that involvement to be the primary leaders of their learning?
Well, first of all, I like my class to be kind of like a friendly atmosphere where everybody feels comfortable. So I like to encourage a lot of discussion. I'll start off my class every morning asking everybody else, good morning, how was your day yesterday? What did you do? Or how was your weekend? And so this gives everybody an opportunity to speak up, and everybody gets a chance to listen to each other. And if something interesting happened, then, it sparks discussion. Oh, really? That's what you did this weekend? Where is it? How did it go? And so they start kind of forming this relationship. Following that, also, I do a lot of group work, teamwork. A lot of times they are a little bit resistant because they're so focused on themselves and learning. They don't realize that there's so much that they can learn from each other. So I mix them up, and then so that more discussion from that, because now they're talking to somebody who usually sits on the other side of the classroom, and like, oh, we've never spoken before, and then they start talking. So what I've found is that now, because everybody has had an opportunity to speak to each other, they know about their lives and everything, there's less, they're not so self-conscious in the class that they'll be too scared to answer a question or to speak up or to participate. So I think that helps them in their learning, because now they're confident in themselves to do the assignment, when they're working quietly. And I feel like that's how that happens. And then after they're done with that, they check with each other and they discuss their answers together. And, if they're wrong, then somebody says, well, I think it's more like this because of X, Y, and Z. And before I go through the final stage with them, with the correct answers, I want them to see if they can figure it out themselves.
That sounds like a really empowering environment. I was just in a GD class where something very similar was happening in terms of students getting up, greeting each other, talking to each other. But sometimes in ESL, we're really good about building community. Sometimes in our GD classes, we're a little afraid of doing that. And sometimes our ESL students might be to themselves because of language challenges.
Yes.
But GD students might be to themselves for other reasons or other fears that they have. So if you were talking to an instructor that was a little reserved or concerned about getting people up and mingling, or thought their students won't like it,
yes,
what would you do to encourage them to do it?
I would say that they shouldn't avoid doing it, because there might be some students who don't like it, because there will always be a student who doesn't like it. And what you find is the more you do it, that student that didn't like it in the beginning actually starts to love it. And it changes the dynamic in the class, because initially you have one student who has a bad attitude, doesn't want to do anything, and everybody else, it kind of brings a negative energy. But I'm speaking from an example in my class, is that I had a student like that, and he impatient, didn't want to do any group work, but I kept, persisting with the group work, and now there's this relationship with him and the class where they joke with each other. Well, he will say something, being impatient, like, "Oh, can we move on?" And the rest of the class is like, "Ha, you're just being, you're being funny. Why don't you just wait for us?" kind of thing. So that has brought the morale, or the atmosphere back up. And I feel like if you persist as an instructor with that, you could change the dynamic of the classroom.
Well, one of the values in our program that was articulated to me by so many, and we talk about it as community. And I really appreciate that you're doing that, because I think our students, all of our students, ESL students, ESL students, GED students, they need to build a sense of social acceptance and value and worth, and they get that feedback from people. So where they begin to feel like they're a part of something that's positive. And so I appreciate that you're doing that. Well, I want to finish our conversation. Now, it hasn't been that long, but we only have so much time in our new world of media to spend on things such as this. I know you're doing a master's right now in adult education. And this is your first semester?
Yes.
Yes, this is your first semester. So I know it's kind of putting you on the spot. But I already heard that you're thinking about things, and so and maybe thinking in new ways or having your thoughts stretched. So I wanted to know what you're learning right now that's informing your instruction or informing the way you think about what you do.
Okay, well, I kind of already touched on it previously in one of the other answers I gave, but the difference between, the teaching children,
right.
the pedagogy and andragogy, and it's something that I've never thought about before, but having been in the course, it was kind of like a light bulb, which is, as adults, our only experience in education is at school, where you go to school and you sit down and there's your teacher and you listen and you take in all the information, take down notes and, get your homework, and, that's what the teacher says goes, and that's that. So you forget that a lot of our students that come in still also have this kind of mindset that you're the teacher, I'm going to sit, be quiet, and listen, and just write. So it's now I'm able to recognize when I see that there's a student who's kind of just sitting there, not really engaging, and it's you can see that it's because there's this expectation of, well, you're supposed to be teaching me, why am I doing all the work? But it's a learning curve, and because once they realize that you can also kind of help yourself in this way, then it breaks down that barrier. But for me, that it was very interesting too.
Well, I hope that our GED instructors are still watching right now, because even though I know you teach ESL, what you just said, I think, really cuts across all of our teaching and learning that happens in adult education. And what I hope we all can do is inspire all of our students to become lifelong learners and become people who realize that learning is their story and they're the main character in that story. So I want to thank you for your time. Is there anything else that you want to share in terms of something that you do in the classroom that you think is really exciting and works really well?
Well, no, basically that just the continuous discussion in the classroom. I feel like that has worked wonders. My classes, my students all feel like we're a family, and I even have, some students don't want to move, even though they're ready to move. Like they want to stay in the intermediate classroom. But I always have to explain to them that it's great having them in the class, but for them to remember they should move forward. And it's sad, but it's also rewarding to see your students succeeding and
moving up.
Yes.
Moving up. So, well, thank you so much for your commitment. To our students, to your students, and to growing as an educator. Thank you so much for your time.
Hi, I'm Debra Runge. I'm an ESL instructor, and I am Adult Education.